Hi, Periscope. Juliana Page here, and I am hopping on for a little weekend word for you all. And first, I have a word literally for somebody, and I don't know who it's for because it doesn't actually relate to me at all today. So it's for somebody. But then I also have a message that I was inspired to share. So let's get to it. So the word that I have for somebody is somebody who is in a work environment and they are not sure if they're supposed to leave or stay, and they don't feel like they can endure. That's the word that I was getting. They don't feel like they can endure what they are going through anymore. So these are the verses that came up for that to really release a strategy to you. So one is coming from 1 Peter, and this is 1 Peter 2, verse 11 through 13. So here it is. Beloved, I implore you as aliens and strangers and exiles in this world to abstain from the sensual urges, so whatever your flesh is telling you to do, that wage against the soul. Conduct yourselves properly among the Gentiles, so in this case, whoever your authority is, so that although they may slander you as evildoers or just literally abuse you or say things or take advantage of you, they may be witnessing your good deeds. Glorify God in the day of inspection. Be submissive to every human institution and authority for the sake of the Lord, whether it be to the emperor or the supreme. For it is God's will and intention that by doing right, your good, honest lives should silence the ignorant charges and ill-informed criticisms of foolish persons. So the first verse that I'm getting is walk uprightly and abstain from relying on your own understanding and your own emotional intellect at this time, or your feelings. So don't count on your feelings. Our feelings basically talk us into or out of things, but they are not the conviction of the Spirit. So in this time, whatever is happening, do not count on your feelings. All right, now the second thing is, it is possible to enjoy life with no apparent reason. And this is coming from 1 Peter 3:10, which says, For let him who wants to enjoy life and see good days, good whether apparent or not, keep his tongue free from evil and his lips from treachery. So the idea here, also really watch what you say. So watch what you say under your breath. Watch what you are listening to and the narrative in your mind. Watch what you are saying, because that can contaminate your soul at this time. And then the last part that I'm getting is from 1 Peter 17. So it's 1 Peter 3:17. For it is better to suffer unjustly for doing right, if that should be God's will, than to suffer justly for doing wrong. So my encouragement for whoever is in a toxic or dysfunctional environment, work is unto the Lord. It's not about you, and it's not about this person or whatever is coming against you, whatever the opposition is. Keep a guard over your mouth. Really watch your tongue, because your tongue can bless and it can curse. And then do good. Find the things to enjoy. Find a word that you can stand on and keep standing. You can endure this and you will get through. God is doing something. All right, so that is a word. 1 Peter, great place to go and study. Now, the actual word that I want to share with you all today is called wired to run. Wired to run. So I actually am a runner. I grew up running track, doing sprints. The 400 was my favorite, and it's also so tough to run that race. But I absolutely feel and know from my own experience that we are wired to run. And what I mean by that is we are wired to run literally our own show. We are wired to call the shots in our life. We're wired to do that. And if you want to take it metaphorically, we are wired to drift away from our relationship with God. We are wired to literally run away from our life force, whether it's intentional, which sometimes it can be, or not. But we are wired to run. So in order to flip the script on this today, I wanted to give you a different way to look at this. So this may relate to some of you, it might not relate to anybody else, but hear me out for a second. So if somebody is running after you, or let me say this a different way, if you have escaped from something that was poisonous to you, or really hurtful to you, or potentially damaging and destructive to you. Like it could have cost you your life kind of bad. If you have escaped from that, if you have overcome that, and whatever the affliction was is now coming after you, you will run your life or the race of your life differently. If somebody is coming after you, you will focus and think differently. So my idea with this is not to freak anybody out or any of that, but it is this idea and this awareness that there is an enemy of your soul. And this enemy of your soul is out there to kill, steal, and destroy any joy that you have, your destiny, your purpose, anything good that you have going for you, really and truly. And if you know how he operates, then you are a threat. So it's really important then that you operate with wisdom and knowledge and discipline. Not that you're afraid, because that is not the spirit that God has given you, but that you operate with discernment and wisdom and understanding so that you're not naive to his tactics, so you don't fall into temptation because God makes a way of an escape, right? And so that you don't have to run. So that's just a push for thinking about your life in a way that will allow you to run differently. Now, this second piece of what I want to share with you is that really, if you want to see a lot of movement and flow happening in your life, you have to allow God to be the director of your life. You have to be willing to stop calling the shots, because we may have been there before where we've been running things our own way and calling shots, and we can be very high achieving and we can have all of these accomplishments and things that we can boast about. But at the end of the day, we still have to start over, and we'll have new pursuits and new relationships, and we'll be on this search for more because we're not getting full of the right things. So my point is that although we are wired to run, there is going to be this battle and this resistance with your soul, because there's this human nature that wants to do its own thing, and then there's this soul that requires alignment. Because what is important to know is that God is a God of protocol. So in a world where we don't have a lot of protocol anymore, where we don't really respect authority, where we don't really pay attention to rules, so to speak, you do see a lot of that, right? Because protocol, I like breaking words down. Protocol is an agreement, obligation, order, acknowledgement, understanding, structure. Really and truly, God is a God of order. He's not a God of confusion. So when there is order and structure to a way of life, to a realm and dimension that you are invited into, it's really important that you follow those rules so you can receive the benefits. Because if you are not in position to receive the benefits, you will miss them. So that's really the point. The rules aren't to punish you. The rules aren't to overwhelm you or anything like that, but it's for your highest good, really and truly. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have your way and you call the shots and then expect to get the benefits of a whole different realm, which is really just a new arena of consciousness. Okay, so there is a whole dimension, a spiritual dimension that you are invited into. Here's how I know. Ready? John 6:44. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent him draws him. Okay, so let me say that again. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. Okay, so really and truly, you can't come to God in your own doing. You can't come to God unless he calls you. But there's an interesting piece about that. When God calls you, he is inviting you into a kingdom that you're currently not living in. That's what's happening, right? So it is an invitation. You are called into a new dimension. But it's on you to decide, will you come? Will you respond to the call? Will you do what it takes to really live and thrive in that kingdom? That's on you. And God is not going to force you. He gave you a free will. That's just point blank what it is. So if you are not using your will to follow him and get to know him, but you're still using your will to call your own shots, you're going to miss out on what he has for you. There it is. All right. So breaking it down, God is calling you, and he's giving you an opportunity to respond and enter into another dimension you couldn't enter into otherwise. So unless he calls you, you can't come in. Next, by his grace, he has given you access to the presence of God. So the presence of God, we've mentioned this before, it's about God's positioning system. It's about God's divine protection. It's about God's provision. He is your source and he is your supply. He is your divine Father who loves and cares for you dearly and has every detail of your life planned out. So essentially, when you are calling the shots, when you are busy about trying to be somebody, one, you're just proving that you don't know who you are, but you are also missing out on the great opportunity to live a life that is covered, that is guided, that is spirit-led, that is provided for, that is divine. All right. And here for whoever needs to hear this, when you're really somebody, you don't have to be anybody. So what I mean by that is when you know who you are, when you are positioned in who that is, when you know your identity in Christ, and you know that that can't be taken from you, it's not something that is dependent upon your own righteousness, it's not something that you have to earn, then you're not busy about earning a reputation. You're not busy about trying to make a name for yourself. You're not busy about trying to be somebody because you already know that you are. It changes your agenda big time. And you don't feel the same need to call your shots when you actually know that on the inside. Okay, so here are some steps that I have today are about how you can recognize that you are wired to run and recognize that that is actually working against you and you are running from the very things that are meant to bless you. And then what you can do to start running a different race and start building endurance for a different dimension. Okay? So the first thing, and I'm getting this from Deuteronomy 30, and it's 15 through 20, but I'm just going to give you one part of it. See, I set before you today life and death, blessing and cursing. Now choose life. Now, as in this present moment, which is all you have. Because really how I break it down, in the past, everything behind you is dead. It's not even alive. You choose to make it active by thinking on it. Your present is really where the action is happening, and your future is something you can future trip about. It hasn't happened yet. So all you have is now, and now is what you get to decide to use your will on. You get to decide what you focus on. You get to decide what you engage in. You get to decide what you express, how you behave, all of that. So now, the protocol, or what God wants you to agree with, is life. Choose what gives you life. So the first step to stop, be still, and know that he is God. The first step to stop running, because you're wired to run. The first step to stop running is to let the dead things be dead. Now, what are dead things? Dead things are old thought patterns that maybe worked back in a different experience but don't work and don't serve you anymore. They could be relationships. So you could have come out of an abusive relationship. You could have come out of a manipulative relationship. You could have come out of a relationship that wasn't even bad. It just wasn't right. There was no life there. It wasn't bearing good fruit. There was no fruit coming from it. And it wasn't part of where you're going. It wasn't going to help you on your journey. It could be emotional instability. It could be, habits and patterns of giving attention to the wrong things. It could be an environment or a culture that you've created or that you're accustomed to. A lot of times we are attracted, which is so strange. We pray for change a lot of times, but then we don't want to actually change because change makes us uncomfortable. So there could be cultures that you've created that have become comfortable for you, but they aren't about you and they aren't about your betterment and your greatness coming out. They're just lazy, to be honest, and they allow you to be less than who you are. They give you permission to be less than who you are. And that is not something you ever want to settle for. So there is great freedom in letting dead things be dead. Let them be dead. There's an exercise too, if the relationship piece was hitting your spirit, there's an exercise where you can literally write or have a funeral. Let me say it that way. You can have a funeral for a dead relationship, because sometimes there's relationships that you don't get closure from, and you're kind of hanging out and you're waiting and you're hoping, and maybe you're stalking that person on social media. But if they don't come and say that I'm sorry that I hurt you and that I treated you horribly, if they don't come around, if that doesn't happen, if you don't get closure, if you're not able to express what was on your heart, if that doesn't happen, sometimes you can get stuck in continuing to look there and continuing to give that your time and your focus and your energy. Sometimes you can find yourself back in those old thought patterns and those old feelings and those old emotions, which does not serve you at all, because the best is yet to come, and it's that way. So sometimes having a funeral for it, so writing a letter to that person, not sending it, burning it maybe, but writing a letter, like getting it out and just letting it go. Literally let that be the closure that you need and move on. Make the commitment that you are not going to focus on it anymore. Accept that it is dead and let dead things be dead. All right, so enough with that. That's a dead point. Okay, so second point is make moves. So the idea with making moves is that recognize and prepare for the transition that you're in. So we are always moving and growing. We move from faith to faith and from glory to glory. That being said, there are some things that you are growing and learning and developing in. You're being transformed by the renewing of your mind. So like we were saying before, old patterns, old belief systems can't fit your new world. They can't. And so old garments too. So old ways of doing things, old ways of behaving, old ways of interacting with people, old habits, those are old garments. You literally can't wear that stuff anymore if you want to be over in this place. Okay? So think about where it is that you know God is leading you to be, and start acting as if. Start activating your faith. Start believing that it is so. And that is the transition work, because whenever you are in between, you have to let go and turn from and focus all your energy on where you're going. So until you can let go, you can't still fully be present or see where you're going. So the idea is to forgive, to release, to let go of anything that is not serving you. Trusting that God works all things together for your good. You don't have to know how, you don't have to know when, you don't have to know the details of that, but putting your trust back in the source who cares deeply for you and loves you and is taking total care of you. Trust him. Put the hurt in his hands, put the past in his hands, put whatever dead thing it is in his hands. Let that go so that you can do the work to turn and focus on where you're going. Otherwise, you will start bringing old residue into this new place, and that's just never fun. So an example is that you could bring old patterns, old fears, limiting belief systems into a new relationship and destroy that relationship. That's not something that you want to do. So embrace that you are in transition and then start preparing. So start thinking the new thoughts. Start activating your faith. Start reading word that is going to inspire and uplift your spirit. Start going to the places that help prepare you. Ask somebody to recommend a mentor or a friend to you. Hire a spiritual coach that can help keep you accountable for making these adjustments. There's so many things that you can do to start building up your fundamentals, is what I'm going to call them. So your prayer life, your thought life, right? What you're speaking over your life, your habits, your culture, the environment that you're surrounded by, your quiet time. All of these things are really important about you moving forward. But the idea is, no matter how fast, no matter how slow, make moves. Faith moves. It believes and it makes the moves as if it is so. So the first thing, let dead things be dead, and then turn, right? So turn is making moves. I'm no longer going to accept that standard for my life, that old way of being. I know that I'm called to more, and I'm going to come to the more. I'm going to respond to the call. I'm going to arise and shine, for my light has come. So that's number 2. Now the last one is, well, let me give you the verse for number 2. So the verse for number 2 is coming from Revelation 22:17, and it says, "And whosoever will, let him come." And what I love about this is it's a very affirmative and welcoming scripture. God is welcoming you into a great place, right? A land flowing with milk and honey. You've heard that, a promised land, but there is a wilderness that you have to go through on the way to. Right? But he is with you and he is for you. He never leaves you. He never forsakes you. And he hasn't given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So sometimes that is what the work is. It's getting your soul in alignment. And why we are wired to run, because when we get uncomfortable, we want to start making the moves in our own strength. We want to figure it out. We want to have a plan B, and God never makes plan B. He only has plan A because plan A works. So when you are wired to run, you are usually impatient. You are usually easily frustrated. You usually have a lot of organization and control going on in your world, which has no room for God, no room for the Spirit to breathe and to flow. And that will choke your vision, and that will choke your destiny, and it will destroy your soul and your life, because the Spirit breathes, the Spirit moves. And if you have no room to move in that, you are literally killing yourself slowly. You are becoming the dead thing. And that is not good as far as prosperity. That is not how you're designed to live at all. All right, so number 3, the last one that we have here is, submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And that literally is how you redeem the time. So anytime that you are tempted to be offended by the opposition, anytime you are, like we open the call with somebody that could be in a work situation where you are being abused, where you are being devalued, where you are being overlooked, that's actually demonic. And we wrestle not with flesh and blood, right? But with powers and forces in the heavenlies. So what usually the enemy likes to do to get you into a snare is to start arguing with the person, or get offended by the person, because that invites the enemy into this situation and creates a really bad environment. When really that is where you can pray, that's where you can put on the full armor of God, that's where you can build up your fundamentals and see it for the opportunity that it is, for you to humble yourself, for you to rise higher in your walk with the Lord, for you to grow in spiritual disciplines, for you to see God working all things together for good, and you representing him well in spite of what is happening around you. You keeping your joy when somebody is trying to steal it from you. You keeping a positive attitude when circumstances would tell you not to. You speaking life when everything seems dead and dysfunctional around you. That is not easy. That is faith. That is work. That is faith in action, and faith moves. But the main point here is that unless you submit to God, you can't carry yourself through that stuff. You're not designed to. You're not designed to live your life on your own. You're not designed to figure this out, because you don't know the deep mysteries of God. And pretending that you are God, you might make some moves on your own strength, and you might create some great things, but they will fizzle out, and you'll still have to start over. And that process and that cycle will keep going. So unless God builds it, it will not stand. So although we are wired to run things, my encouragement is that you can unplug from the world. You can watch what happens when you just unplug from social media. Do it for a week and watch what happens. And fill that silence with God. Read your word in that time. If you read the word as much as you got on social media, enough said. Okay, so you can unplug, and you can connect to your source, and you can be full of the presence of God. You can come to the call. When you come to the call, you get full of something different. You get inspired. You receive vision. You receive revelation. You receive inspiration. You know that there's a divine, sovereign God caring for you, and you just rest in that presence, and you breathe in new life that helps you to live an abundant life. It's so important, but you can't have that experience if you're not submitting to it. And the more you rely on your own strength, God lets you go. He lets you run until you get completely exhausted and usually way too far out and come back. And the great thing about God is he doesn't look at you any different after all that. After all the cray-cray, he still accepts you back with welcoming arms. It's beautiful. It really is. But I am telling you, if you make this adjustment, if you make this decision to submit, that one decision will change everything in your entire life. It doesn't mean that it will be easier, but it will change everything in your life. And it allows you to flow in a different realm. It allows you to have access to a different realm. It allows you to live in a different realm, a different perspective, a different vision, a different dream, a different flow about your life, a different rhythm, a different pattern, different thoughts, fresh perspectives, fresh air, an inspired spirit, joy, peace. You're not trying to go out and make things happen. You're inspired and you know that it will happen. Whatever is of God, he that promises is faithful. His word does not return void. You can stand on what he says. He's not of the world. He's not like the world. And he changes not. So here are those things again. If you are wired to run, it's all good. Accept it, but then learn how to deal with it. So the first thing is, let dead things be dead things. You are not meant to live in dead things. Let them be. Next thing is make moves. Embrace this idea that you are always moving from A to B. You're no longer where you were. You're not where you're going to be. You're on the way to. So how are you managing the process on the way to? Are you learning the lessons? Are you passing the test? So like we shared at the top of this message today, are you passing the test? Sometimes we are in situations where resistance and that stuff is coming up because it's showing us what our character is. It's showing us where our work is. Will we pass the test? Will we keep a good attitude? Will we speak life? Will we represent the kingdom? Or will we return to our former nature? Will we go low? Will we go low? And then the last thing is humble yourself before the Lord and he will exalt you in due time. So you don't need to exalt yourself. You don't need to make a way for yourself. He is your way maker. He is your promotion. He is your source. He is your supply. And he will supply all your needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. He knows what you have need of before you even ask. So the best thing that you can do is submit to his authority. Give your will, give your power to him and watch him breathe on it, because nothing is impossible with God. All things are possible with God. But you can't say that about yourself. You cannot. So you want to hook up with God. If it's down to you and God, you are winning. You are winning. So I hope this blessed you. I have a prayer to lock it in for us today. Ooh, sorry that we're moving here. All right, here is a little evening blessing for you. You can see the sun's going down here. All right, the evening blessing is this. May you step back from the things that frustrate you and consider what God might be saying to you here, wherever you are. Is he asking you to lay down your arms and entrust your soul to him? Where can you give him your thought life? Where can you have ease in your emotions, stability in your emotions? Where's your heart still aching and weary? Where can you entrust your soul to him? Or is he asking you to raise your shield and stand in faith? Is it getting hot? Are you going through the fire? Are you needing this season to be over? Endure. Have courage. Be bold and courageous. Either way, you're not at the mercy of your circumstances. You have his mercy, and he'll keep you steady and sturdy in your faith. Don't take the bait of the offense. Don't take the bait of the opposition. The opposition is the enemy. He literally is the opposer, the oppressor. Anything that is in your life that is acting and showing up like those things is of the enemy. Do not take the bait. Do not fall for it. Submit to God. Submit to his supreme authority. Submit to his guidance. Submit to his character, his nature. Let him operate mightily in and through you. Look up and do what Jesus tells you to do. You will overcome. You will overcome. God will not. God will not. God will not fail you. Blessings on your night tonight, everybody. If you want to know more about how you can get involved in a small group, if you're interested in spiritual coaching, or if you have any questions or comments, feel free to connect with me and reach out at julianapage.com. Take care, everybody.